Graham, good to see you again. I'll just start with Saturday's game, and we spoke afterwards about the pride that you had in the performance that you'd shown against top-level opposition in this division. In the aftermath, following on from that game, do you still feel that pride, and what can you take away looking back on that fixture?
I had pride in our character of never giving in, pushing all the way to the end. But there's things in the performance that we've spoke about with the players, and they spoke to us about that they weren't particularly happy with themselves. And I would agree with that. Watching the game back in the cold light of day, I think the atmosphere that was created inside the stadium was brilliant. I think it could have, for me at the time, maybe overshadowed things that we could have done better. Sort of thinking it differently. And I think that was with the players as well, with the feedback we got. So there was a game there for us, and this is not taking any credit away from Cardiff, who are a very good team. But the things we know that we went off in a little spell in the first half, which has been a bit of a downfall in other games previous. It's only been short little spells, but we've seen the difference between how strong we are as a defensive unit when we just go off these 2 or 3 details. That how disconnected we are, and that was the biggest point. And I like the fact that the players felt that if we'd have just done that as we'd done before, then it was a game we could have won. That's the thing. So, but I love the character of the players on the day, because we pushed and I think you could see from Cardiff's approach and game plan and their sort of their feeling after the game about beating us, it was a big one for them as well. So that's great credit to what the team has done so far this season. But I like the fact when we came back in and analysed it, that the players themselves suggested that we could have done better as a group, and I like that thirst for being better and the standards they've set, they want to maintain them.
Do you almost just take a step back in that moment and let them lead the debrief and self-police, so to speak, or do you input as well as part of it?
Oh yeah, 100% I input, because I think it's important for me, but I always I try to ask the right questions before I give my opinion. Because me giving my opinion first and then expect them to give theirs, and they might not want to disagree with me or something, so I ask for theirs first, and at certain aspects, but certain aspects are really clear. And I think I said it after the game actually, that when we see especially the first goal back, we'll be able to put our finger on exactly what caused the issue. And I was correct with that. So, and the players themselves hold hands up and take accountability. There's no hiding, there's no deflection. That is the only way we can improve as individuals and B as a team. By understanding where the improvements need to be made, but they're improvements that we are within our control, because we've already shown that we could do it in numerous games against. I said we've played opponents from every level in English football this season, and we've shown those aspects throughout to be successful. So I think that's the thing. When you get beat, the pain of defeat is the first thing you feel. And then the second thing is, can we be better next time? And I think the players are in the right headspace to do that.
I'm sure you'll have known this pretty much about this group already, but does that give you a further insight into that thirst, that hunger to want to improve, particularly when, again, if we contextualise it, the level of opposition, the quality of player within their squad, where they've come from last season, that your players want to be at that very top level at this level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think there's a balance, right? Because we don't differentiate between who we play against. So even when we played Newcastle, who were a Champions League club, we did not change our message, and we didn't do anything differently. We didn't have an extra meeting or an extra session on the pitch, because I wanted to be consistent with how we approach every single game, mentally. Going into it, and I felt we did in that particular game earlier this season. We had a genuine belief we could win that game, and that's the starting point. You must go into every challenge with a genuine belief that you can overcome it. And I like the fact that the players and not accepting that it's okay to get beat by the team at the top of the table by a small margin. That no, I think we're better than that, or every individual thought, no, we're better than that. And I like that fact. I like that desire and that acceptance of the standards we've set already, and not accepting anything less. But that said, me as the manager, as an experienced guy in football, understand the structure of clubs and their histories and their potential. And for us to go toe to toe with probably the pre-season favourites and over 2 games and do what we did, I think that's great progress for us as a club. But we want to win. That's the thing. We can take small bits of pleasure or contentment from certain aspects, but ultimately we want to win, and we failed to do that.
To that end, with Huddersfield Town next, naturally a lot of attention on the fixture because they're a local rival, it's a derby, but you will not be then deferring away from what you've done already in maintaining consistency. No,
I don't, because look, it's I'm quite a pragmatic guy, and if something's not working, then we find a way around it. But it has to not work, consistently or continually, not for one game or for a 20-minute spell. That's not enough for us to go, right, let's try and find another way. If we go back to when we started playing 3-4-3, we were playing 3-5-2 and something wasn't clicking. The results showed it wasn't clicking, so we came up with a solution. But the results over the last 15 months with everything we do, not just the formation, because the formation is a side issue, it's a small percentage of how you play. There's so many aspects and details in everyone's game model, and ours are the same. So those consistencies we've had, I think, have shown over the last 15 months success, and winning games. So for us to go away from that for no particular reason or for a one-off game, I just think it's counterproductive. I think that because we could come in Tuesday with a real clarity, all of us, why we didn't do what we wanted to do, it's because we know exactly what should have happened, because we don't change, from these aspects. There's little tweaks every now and then, but the main fundamentals of our game is the same, and it enables every player, every staff member to be able to pinpoint the issue straight away and then fix it. And that's why we try to do it, because we want consistency, and to have that you have to have clarity, and I think the players have that. So we'll go into another big game, and I said to the players on Tuesday, if we thought us against Cardiff was a big game, they're all big games for us because we're involved, and they must be the biggest games for us, whatever. And if we maintain our sort of position, then it'll all be top of the table clashes, because whoever we're playing against is playing someone at the top end of the table. So that's how we have to just get into this consistent mindset and see every game for what it is. And I think the players have understood that, and I think they'll take it forward into what will be another big game for both teams.
Yeah. Are you one to take confidence from how the game unfolded the last time you met with Huddersfield Town, or is that in the past and have you moved on?
I believe it is in the past, and I've said this before about it, but I think we can take confidence from several games we've played this season, and against highly fancied teams and come out on top on them. So I wouldn't take one particular game into consideration, because as we've seen on Saturday, however well we played and defended in the first game, we probably didn't take that through into the second game. So we have to reset, understand our game plan, not think about the last game, and think as in the last game we played Huddersfield, or even the last. We have to go, what is our game based upon, and have that running through our minds on every second of every minute, regardless of what has just happened, regardless of the noise. We've just got to go, what is my next action as individuals? When we do that, we're a really, really good team. So I think it's a separate entity, this game, but it's definitely one that everyone will be looking forward to, because of the rivalry aspect of it. Yeah,
and there's obviously the additional factor in that there's been a managerial change for them. Lee Grant losing his job on Saturday, and Liam Manning now in post for Saturday's fixture. From your standpoint, in terms of preparation, as we've just discussed, I know you focus on yourself, but does that at all factor into your preparation, given that you're effectively facing a new entity with a new coach in post?
Yeah, it will do, because when I speak about our game being our basis and our first thought and the biggest percentage of our thoughts, it is, but we do analyse the opposition quite strongly. You know, the dossiers we have about the opposition are really detailed, brilliant from the analysts that we have here. So much detail in there, but I break it down to certain bullet points for our team. And real, you know, probably 5% of what I devour and what the coaching staff devour to go there, because our players need to focus on what we are. But we, as a coaching staff, do look at the opposition in depth. And when a new manager comes in, even though it's the same players, you can play a million different ways with the same players. So there'll be a little bit of sort of understanding the new guy and understanding the players there. But like I say, it is so important that we understand our game inside out. But yeah, it's an extra challenge, but it's a small percentage of the bigger picture of the whole day, really.
And just on that, is that a case of you not wanting to, when you talk about clear bullet points, overloading players with information, just that very clear point of what they need to focus on individually, team aspect as well?
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, it's because I've been a manager for a lot of games now, but also a player that wanted real clarity. So I don't unload all the information I have onto the right wing back, because he doesn't need to know all of it. He needs to know 1 or 2 points, because that's all it is. Because the other 95% is exactly the same, game in, game out. But that little 5% might be 1 or 2 aspects, and that's all I feed him. So I go through all this stuff. I go, right, that's for him. That'll be for him. This will be for this back three, and that's it. Because it is for that clarity. Because honestly, I've been there as a player when it's information overload. They might do this, might do that, might do this, might do that. Which one is it going to be? You know what I mean? So what we try to do is empower the decision-making process and empower the player to be able to go, actually, he's doing this. So we have certain benchmarks for the players to go, well, worst case scenario, this is what happens. And they just break down the percentages. But it's that's it. Because I have been that player when it's impossible to take it all in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes I felt like it was almost a coach or manager trying to cover every aspect of it. So after the game, he said, well, we did cover that. And I'm thinking, come on.
Yeah.
It was like the Bible I read before the game. I can't take that. So, and you know, when games are coming every 3 days, it's impossible to get all that. So that's why we focus on ourselves more than anything. But there's some real good little tidbits of information that are really valuable to each individual player.
And just finally on Huddersfield Town, as part of your analysis then, given that Liam's new into the role, is it a case of looking back at his teams of the past and how they set up, and maybe little bits of information you can glean from how he's maybe set up his sides in previous games?
But that'll be for me.
Yep.
So and Chris and True, where we sort of analyse what they might do as a team, but the actual individual player that someone might be playing against, that's not going to change. He has his certain traits and stuff like that. So honestly, sometimes there'll be info for a player, sometimes there'll be none, because I think, well, that's irrelevant and it doesn't matter. So I really think it's important for us to keep the players' minds focused on what they need to do for their teammates, because their teammate is the most important aspect of our game. It's not your opponent, it's your teammate is the most important thing. The opponent is secondary to what you have to do to help your teammate. And that's how we know we're a functional team. And I think that's what we did for the first goal last week. We actually thought about our opponent instead of our teammate. But the players just picked up on it straight away, and that's the best thing. So, and then even then you can analyse everything, and games can change at the whim of anything. So I think the ability to be adaptable is the most important thing for a player.
Bodies wise, how are you going into Saturday?
Pretty strong. I think we just had a bit of 11v11 practice match. 2 really good, strong teams. So I think we're in reasonably good health for a busy period coming up, really. But obviously we can only focus on the game in front of us. So we'll I think we've got a strong group to pick from. I've got decisions to make, which I like. So fingers crossed I'll make the right ones.
And my routine January question on the ins and outs front, are there any further developments from when we last spoke to you?
No, there's nothing changed in or out. So it's just speculation, phone calls, bits like that, discussions with Ryan, David, Genty, myself and Chris, and just sort of that we're ready to act if we need. But obviously as the clock ticks down and the time scale gets shorter and shorter before the deadline, some decisions might be pushed forward, but some other decisions might be pushed back to the summer because we can't let people go. So that's where we are right now.
Best luck Saturday, Greg.
Thanks, mate.
You said you like to keep the build up to every game as consistent as possible, and you mentioned after the Cardiff game that you don't like to analyse the game coming up or give the information until the day before. Is that even more important when it's a derby like it is this weekend, where the hype could get into the players and maybe make their concentration go off? Yeah,
I think you can be focused and concentrated too early. When the game you can't do anything about it, and then it's just mental energy that you're wasting. So, look, and everyone's different. We all do it different ways. There's managers that will plan 4 days out and be building up to that. I think, and that's fine. As long, it all comes out in results. If that's the way you win, then great. If the way we do it is the way we win, then great. That's how it is. But I because our consistency in our game is the most important thing to us. We want to do the same sort of things and have the same messages, but then there's a change every time we play an opponent, and it's only it'll be very rarely the day before. It'll be on the day of the game, and it'll be when we get the team, because we can cover 20 players, but only 11 of them are going to play. So we wait until the actual team comes, and then we go bang, and then we give, because it's only a small amount of information. You can give it at the last minute and it's fresh in the mind, and it's only what is absolutely needed, for that particular opponent. So that's what we try to do. It's probably going back to my playing days, how I felt more comfortable. I knew my game inside out, I knew my team's game inside out, and then I just wanted a tiny little bit of information on the player I was playing against or something like that. And that's where it's from, really. And I think it's worked for me, and worked for my teams because I believe in it. If I didn't believe in it, I was just picking it from somebody else. I wouldn't really fully commit to it. So that's all it is, really. And but if any player feels different, so players are free to go and speak to the analysts and go, can I get a bit of info on this guy? And that's fine. We're open to that if they want to do that. But then it's a balance of, don't overblow him into Lionel Messi, because you can see packages where it makes every player look like a wonderful player. I think it's important to keep that context of how good you are as well as an individual.
I suppose it's also the case that you've got to keep thinking during the game, because things can change 100%. With the weather, with players changing the last minute.
Well, that's the biggest thing. That's why I say the ability to adapt is much more important and understand your game, because you might be playing against an opponent, you might get injured, you might get taken off, and then someone else comes on, or you might switch sides, or whatever it is. Anything can happen in a game. So the ability to be adaptable, the ability to make clear decisions, whatever comes your way, I think is the biggest thing for any footballer. Because you see me shouting on information sometimes and everything, but the players are making probably 100 decisions in between the time I speak to them every 10 minutes. So they have to have the ability to be able to do that themselves and stand on their own 2 feet. It's how we do things. It's so they can ask questions and be curious and inquisitive. So they're getting information, they're finding it. So they're finding solutions for issues, because that's what football is. And if they can do it Monday to Friday, they can definitely do it on a match day.
Cheers.
Okay, mate.
Graham, obviously, when you say about in the big occasion like this, when you're trying to keep calm in that atmosphere, is bravery being sort of brave on the ball, perhaps finding that time rather than perhaps that big, knock 'em over challenge first minute to get the crowd going? Yeah,
definitely, 100%. I think it's. When I spoke to the players earlier in the week, when I'm speaking to them in the cold light of day, after analysing the game in a quiet room at home with no volume on the laptop, it's easy to see things clearly. But then I do, equal that sort of comment up with, but I've been right in the middle of that.
All around you.
10 players in 20 yards with a split second to make a decision. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying, that looks such an easy pass. I've been there where you can't see through three bodies and stuff like that. But you have to have an idea of what our team looks like without being able to see it. That's how we sort of think, how we play. So we talk to players all the time. If you close your eyes now, could you go, I bet he's here, I bet he's here, I bet he's there, and I bet he's behind me. That's when our team is in a good place. If we're pressing, if you look behind you, you're too late. What you're worried about, your teammate will be with you. So if I ever see people's heads turn to look behind them, I know they've had doubt in their mind about going forward and pressing and being with their teammate, and they ain't trusting the guys behind them. So all those little things, but they can happen in big profile games, so-called important games, even though it's in the middle of a season, with loads of games after, but I get it because of the proximity of the league positions. So that's why I'm talking from a place of empathy for the players, because I've been there in players when I've been there as a young player when I'm completely distracted from what I have to do into everything else around the game, almost like a supporter sometimes. You know what I mean? And us as professionals, as I got older and more experienced and more knowledgeable, I just whittled it down to a real sort of, the blinkers were on about my performance and what I need to do for my teammates, and that's what we're trying to encourage the players to do, but help them to do that as well. And and I think that comes from our consistent message and our consistent way of playing. But I understand massively that you can get sucked into the moment. But I think our players have shown, touch wood, great control over their emotions generally over the course of this season. And if you look at how we started the season in big games against big opponents, I think we've handled that sort of aspect of it really well so far this season.
Yeah, as we said before about the big game spotlight, this club experiencing so many big games, aren't they, over a long period. I mean, so presumably you sort of get a bit, even the younger players get a bit battle hardened to all the environment, don't they? Yeah, I think because I was speaking to Tilty and on Tuesday about the game, and he said when I watch it back, the things I thought were issues for us, they weren't issues. So because of the environment, the noise, and maybe they broke for our press a couple of times, I thought, oh no, but it was still like 50 yards from our goal, and we still had like 4 defenders behind the ball. And he goes, but at the time, I felt exposed, and they broke through. And that's good though, that he can go, actually, it's not blowing it up to a big thing. So we talk about it all the time, if we play away, especially in a big environment, but we have this as a tool at Valley Parade. You might give a thrown away in the final third, and the home crowd go mad, and you blow it up to being, oh my God, what's happening? So we go, lads, it's just a throw-in. Do you know what I mean? So just understand that before the game. So we try to give them that information, that go, this is what's going to happen, and then you're going to feel like this, but it's not really that, it's this. So, you know what I mean? And that's what we try to do. So, and I think the younger players, especially the older players that we've got, I think have played a lot of big games over their years because they've played in successful teams. But there's a lot of young players in our squad as well that are probably not experienced it, apart from maybe Bobby here, Josh at Wimbledon last year, but not lots of years of doing it. I was going to say someone like Jensen is probably still very much at the beginning of that journey in terms of these big occasions. Yeah,
so I think, you know what I mean, and that's why we have to give them the clarity afterwards. Look, that's all it was, really. It wasn't a big thing. It was just a noise, or it was this emotion because of the time on the clock or the team you're playing. But it was just this simple thing that happened. Don't blow it up to big proportions. And I think the more you hear that, the more feedback you get. Actually, when it happens, you just remember that. You go, oh yeah, it's just that. And then you just calm and focus. I think it's really important for our players to be able to understand that, and us, we have to be clear with our messages back to them. You know what I mean? That's why we will, be straight with our players. Because it's anything else is not in making them stronger for the next time it happens. You just might be not hurting their feelings or something right time, but next time it happens, he's still going to react the same way, and we don't want that, and we're not doing him any service. So that's how we see it. But there's a way of communicating that so it goes in the right way.
On that sort of noise front, I mean, the fact there is a change of manager there.
Yeah.
You were playing a Huddersfield team that their form has been a bit up and down. Obviously I was a manager who was coming in for a bit of criticism, and it was could have been a little bit sort of wobbly, particularly if they started perhaps slowly on Saturday. Whereas now you've got a new manager, suddenly it's almost like managers talk about a slate being wiped clean for players, but almost for supporters as well. So in a sense of that noise will probably be a little bit louder.
Yeah, I get that. It's a common theme that's purported in football. The change of manager, this, and there is a real thing of that before a game, but then moments in games can just bring it back to the norm, or nothing changes. So that's what the game is. That's what football is. I think our last two sort of defeats, Mansfield and Cardiff, I think it's been pretty even, or even our way, until we've conceded early on, and then there's been a shift. It's changed the opponents, it's changed us. So I think it can happen in every game. But I get that there's a clean slate and all that sort of stuff. They're still a very strong team. I believe they're still in the playoffs. When Lee got the sack, so it's not all doom and gloom. It's still a really strong position. I don't know the expectancy they had at the start of the season, so I'm not involved in those conversations. But from the outside, Lee, as a first-time manager, was still 6th in the division. So there has to be context around that as well. But look, the game is what it is, and we just have to, and this is why we focus on ourselves. So regardless of what changes might happen in front of us with our opponents, we have to keep our common sense, our composure, and just be up for the challenge of a really good game of football between two good teams, as it was last Saturday.
One question on the window. Obviously, you were sort of saying about some decisions might have to wait until the summer. Some of the players who aren't currently involved, have there been conversations with yourself?
Yeah, there has, but not like not definitive conversations, if you know what I mean. No sort of like conclusion at the end of it. Just an understanding. A player asking about where I see him, where his future potential could be, as in within our team and stuff like that. And with a couple, I've been able to be really clear. With a couple of us, it's a bit unknown, because they probably haven't had the amount of games to actually prove one way or the other. So, but honestly, my door is always open to every player who wants to come in and have a conversation. I've explained this to a couple of players who haven't been playing. One came to see me a week ago, and I said, "Why haven't you come to see me 3 weeks ago? You should have come in and seen me 3 weeks ago, because you weren't in the squad 3 weeks ago. Why didn't you not?" And he felt it like I didn't want to come in and all guns blazing. That I said, "But you haven't done that now either. You just have to knock on the door, can have a chat, and that's all it is. We sit across from each other and have a chat about it. You're a grown man, I'm a grown man. That's how I see it. I don't want to have conflict with players for no reason. We can talk as grown adults and try and work out the best scenario for everybody, because I want the best from my players as individuals. So it's one of those where there's always uncertainty in the back end of the window, certainly, because it's not decided. And sometimes you have sort of like I don't know, you sort of think, oh, this will happen, but then it's not until it actually happens where you know how you're going to just make a decision, or the player is. So there's always communication, but it's not always me pulling the player. Sometimes the player wants to come and see where he stands as well, and I think that's a healthy thing for a player. It shows that he's investing in his career and he cares, and I like that in an individual.
And obviously that outlook can still change in the next 10, 11, 12 days, can't it? It's literally day to day almost at times.
It can change in the next 10 minutes if I get a phone call or someone's waiting outside my office right now. That's how it is. So I have an open mind. I think I know where I want to take the group, the team. I know where every window we try to improve, and we try to keep pushing things forward. And it's up to players to stay with that and show that they're good enough to do that. But that's never changed. I had to do the same for 24 years as a player. I don't think there's any scenario where you're set in stone, where you don't have to prove yourself continually in a good club with an ambition, which we are. So I think anything can come up in the next 10 days or so, and we have to be ready to act or not act regarding on the situation, really.
Well, you've achieved a lot. It's been remarkable the last year or so, Graham. You've ticked a lot of boxes. I suppose getting a big derby away win at a rival's one of the few that you probably all of you've got left to do, really.
Well, we beat Doncaster when I first got here, away from home, 3-1. So remember that one? Yeah. See how quickly it gets forgotten.
I know.
To be fair, they've had the upper hand after that. So no, it's it's another paragraph on the report about the game and the profile. You know what I mean? But look, I've said it many times about, as players, we want to play in big profile games with big crowds, big atmospheres. That's where your memories are best served from when you're a young kid. You know, even if it was in front of 2,000, when you're 8 years old, you don't realise it's only that. It's still a big noise and all that, not a great atmosphere. So I think that's what you grow up with, and watching football on TV. It's full stadiums you dream about. So I would guess it will be a full stadium on Saturday. We'll be taking as many as we're allowed to take. So we've just got to focus on doing the best job for ourselves and for our supporters. That's our first sort of box ticking exercise every single week.
Yeah. And I think Simon touched on it. If you're doing your job and you're playing with your heads, and you can sap the energy of the home support, they've probably been a little bit reinvigorated by what's happened this week. And,
but I think they'd have been up for it anyway, because it's because of the derby nature of the game, and it's probably not been played there for quite a while at their ground. So there is that. So I think I think when new people come to a club, whether it's a player or a manager, I think all support bases try to get behind those people and give them their support. But we don't bring that sort of into our talk, into our thinking about the crowd, the opposition crowd. When we go into any game of football, we focus on our performance, what the opponent might bring, and after that, it's we have to deal with it. But I think our players over this last 12, 15 months have become accustomed to playing in these environments, and I think they would choose this type of environment over any other. So that's a good place to be, that we're not shirking away from it. We're actually improved by it, and we're looking forward. We're excited by it. I think that's a good place to be for a player and for our supporters as well, because I'm sure they're looking forward to it.
Just going to ask you finally, as a football man, were you aware of this sort of rivalry before you sort of came in? I suppose Skip, your number 2, he played for Huddersfield, so he's probably a bit...
Yeah, I think Skip, I wasn't particularly, no, if I'm being honest, no, I wasn't. But Skip would have been, I think he captained Huddersfield twice, certainly in his first spell, so he had a fantastic time there as a player, I know that. So he'd been more aware of it before we came in. Obviously, I'm aware of it now over the last 2 years, but even though we hadn't played them until this season. So, but you find out when you go to a club straight away, you pick up a sense on who your big rivals are. Sometimes you're not in the same division, but people still talk about the past games, and then you pick up on it as a manager or as a player. So we know the importance to everyone on that set. But for the Bradford fans and the players, we want to win every game. You know what I mean? So I'd like to think that we're as focused for this one as we are as any other match we'll play this season.
Yeah, thank you.
Just one for me, Gareth. Do you know much of Liam? Have you come across him before or anything like that?
Sort of like, obviously I had a very short spell at MK Dons where he'd been, I think, maybe previous season, at the start of the previous season or the season before. So, knew of him there, and then I think we played against each other once down there, but it was only the one game. So, but no, that was the only time I've met him. Obviously a good manager. He's got a good reputation. He's created winning teams at the other clubs he's managed. So, I think it's a good appointment.
And as you touched on before, looking at this game coming into it, everything's been made of the new manager, but this is still 2 very good teams up at the table, going to go in and do battle. Yeah,
I believe so. Look, in the build up to it all, the managers will be a part of the conversation and stuff like that, regardless of what game it is. But ultimately, when the whistle goes, it's 2 teams with 11 players. That's it. But honestly, it's down to them. I know we have our impact, and we can at different times. But over 45 minutes, our impact is during the week. It's not in those 45 minutes, each half. I mean, so look, it's. I think when the whistle goes, the only focus will be the actual game on the grass. I think the managers, the benches, it's a sideshow, to be honest. I think the most important thing is the game of football in front of us. So I think everyone's looking forward to it. I know my players are, I know my staff are, I know the fans are. So yeah, we'll see what we can do.